According to Subway, there are 37 million possible sandwich variations. But according to me, when shooting window reflections, there are even more. Let's get into it. Window reflections are fantastic to photograph because of the layers of detail that you can achieve just by pointing your camera towards a window. Not only do you capture the reflection of a subject walking into frame and the immediate environment, but you also capture whatever you're framing in the window display. The beauty of this is that you will not only capture the subject that you are shooting, but also the layers of details, the colours, the textures that will ultimately create intrigue and interest in any viewer of your photo. Even tastier than Subway, the amount of combinations that you can capture is virtually limitless. Just use your camera to frame a window display in any orientation, angle, or perspective that you like and wait for the perfect moment when a subject enters the frame. Not only this, but if you can't be bothered to walk, then standing in front of a window whilst waiting for a subject to walk into frame is a great way to take a load off your feet. So for specifically shooting window reflections, we're going to take a look at capturing layers, capturing texture and detail, and intentionally blurring your subjects and more, all without shuffling too far down the road. Let's jump straight in. Not only can you capture everything that's reflected in the window display, but you're also capturing everything within the window display that you have framed with your camera. By incorporating both the reflection, whatever's in the window, the subject and the environment behind the glass, you can create an extremely detailed, multi-layered image. This technique allows you to merge multiple narratives within a single frame, which offers a richer visual experience and also makes your photos more thought-provoking. Additionally, if the weather is on your side, it provides an opportunity to use light and shadow to emphasize whatever is in the reflection, allowing your subject to stand out within a potentially busy composition. In this image here, you've got the beautiful, strongly yellowed flowers. Then you have a sharp divide with this box, which almost looks like a jagged tear running through the image. We then have our well-dressed subject and then the picturesque street behind. Plus, if you look at both corners, you have different colours and textures. A rope, a reflected window that has somehow been reflected with the colour red. All of these elements create a beautiful intricacy of colour, shape, depth and detail. In this photograph, I was able to capture the poster of the model that was in the glass window of the salon, and now it's reflected into the street. I managed to frame her eye and face within the arched building facade on the opposite side of the street. You can see that the interplay of light and shadow contribute to the layering effect, adding some atmosphere and highlighting the subject at the far end of the composition. And in this image, I caught this guy who was standing next to me looking into the window display. His transparent reflection allowed for another subject to stand directly behind him, and you can see that he's literally standing inside of him. It's an interesting layering effect that is reminiscent of shooting multiple exposures. In this case, it's easily captured just by shooting a window display reflection. Capturing these layers looks tricky, but it's actually very simple, and you can do this just by angling your camera close to the window whilst framing your composition to not only capture whatever's in the window display, but also everything that's going on in the reflection, and then you just simply wait for a subject to enter the frame. The more elements that you can capture within the reflection and the more detail that you can capture within the window display, the greater the layering effect you will capture. It's just a matter of practice. Obviously, windows are made up of different kinds of glass. Plus, certain people clean their windows more than others. And this is only a good thing for you as a street photographer, as capturing people walking past dirty windows or windows with some kind of textured material or foliage in the display adds a significant amount of texture and detail to your images, capturing another layer of interest. In this image, we have this interesting effect with this draped blanket thingy folding down into the scene, covering the seated drinker on the left of the table. It not only adds colours and textures, but it also adds another layer of interest to this photo. These scratched glass shots, plus foliage in the window and the addition of mirrors in window displays, all serve to add interesting textures and details to the images that you can incorporate into your photos by seeking out similar window displays. Plus, some glass windows create distorted reflections due to the type of glass used. Factors such as manufacturing imperfections and old or weathered surfaces can all cause light to scatter irregularly, resulting in unique and distorted reflections. Understanding these factors allows you as a photographer to anticipate and creatively capture these effects in your images. Also, look out for bright colours in window displays and shops. You can use these to add extra vibrancy and pop in your compositions. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a like and please subscribe if you want to learn more detailed street photography techniques and tips. I always appreciate your support. You can very easily use the composition technique of framing when shooting window reflections. All you have to do is place your subject in between items or details that are in the window display, or perhaps a window or a building facade on the opposite side of the street. Or it can be a specific object that's in the window display that you can wait for your subject to enter using the fishing technique. Once again, the possibilities are pretty much endless, as all you have to do as a street photographer is rely on the shopkeeper's creativity in placing interesting elements in different areas of the window display. Then all you have to do is frame up and angle your camera in such a way that it creates a space for any subject to enter. And once they do, just hit the shutter button. As I said in a previous video, you can also use people to frame your subject. There are so many elements in window displays and window reflections for you to work with. Having good light helps in highlighting the subject who is reflected in a detailed window display. There is always the possibility that the reflection that you're shooting is dark, where anything on the opposite side has a dark facade, the display is reflecting a dark area, or just the weather is particularly bad. However, in my opinion, these are not insurmountable problems when shooting window reflections, simply because the viewer of your photos will naturally pick out the human subject within the interesting and atmospheric chaos of the window reflection. But as I've said in previous videos, having good light and shadows in your photos will help to create depth and also work to separate the subject from the environment, and will therefore just give your images that edge. When I was out on this shoot, where the camera managed to miss focus, the subject in the reflection became slightly blurred, and that's potentially where the focusing system latches onto the window display rather than the subject in the reflection. However, I think it adds to the detailed atmosphere, creating a dreamy and artistic effect that in many instances adds to the overall mood of the photographs. The soft blur juxtaposed with the sharp elements of the window displays can draw the viewer's eye to different parts of the image, adding potential depth and complexity to your scene. So don't be disheartened if your subjects aren't always sharp in the reflection, as I think it actually adds to the rough and disordered vibe of photos with window reflections. And without going into detail, because I'm sick of that word, there's another technique that you can use shooting subjects that are next to juxtaposing elements. For instance, I used a contrasty black and white preset of mine to create a distinct contrast between this man who is shaded in darkness standing next to a very bright and prominent plant. Or in this shot, we have this man in the distance with his mouth open next to this mannequin's head with her mouth open. Having your subjects next to elements of extreme contrast can create striking visual interest, and they can be as absurd or as subtle as you like. For the first time ever, unless I accidentally hit the aperture dial, which does happen from time to time, I stayed at f8 in aperture priority mode using auto ISO 100/3200 with a minimum shutter speed of 1/250th of a second. I also shot in auto area autofocus in the center mode on my Ricoh GRIIX. I recommend f8 as it's a good mid-range aperture which strikes a good balance in letting enough light through your lens and also being able to get a decent depth of field to capture whatever is in the window display and also whatever detail is in the reflection. Also use whatever focus settings works for you and your camera. The Ricoh GRIIX has an APS-C sensor with an equivalent 40mm full frame lens. When shooting window reflections, I think it's important to use any focal length from 35mm up to approximately 70mm in order to frame the window display, whilst making sure that your subject, who might be on the opposite side of the road, looks large enough within the frame. At times, I use the crop modes on my Ricoh GRIIX, 50mm and 71mm, and I did this if I wanted to punch in and have a cleaner frame, or I wanted to give the subject, who might be a distance away, who is in the reflection, to have more prominence within the frame. So experiment with different focal lengths or crop modes if your camera has them, because the more that you do this, the better you will get at knowing what focal length to use for your subjects in the reflections of your shots. As part of this tutorial, I decided to have a little experiment where I decided to shoot with slow shutter speeds of around 1/13th of a second, or even slower and slightly faster. Here are all the settings for the slow shutter speed shoot for you to use if you're interested, which I think all of these settings work together to create an atmospheric sense of movement and, dare I say, ghostliness on some of the subjects, which is just another level of atmospheric interest that you can experiment with when you're out shooting window reflections. In order to shoot at slow shutter speeds, all I did was shift the dial into shutter priority mode, and I selected as slow a shutter speed as I could without picking a shutter speed that was so slow that it risked overexposure of the shots. So do you have any areas in mind where you live that you can go out and shoot interesting window reflection shots? And do you have any other techniques that I haven't discussed here? Please let us know down below. As you can see, it's an advanced technique that's actually very easy to implement. So I encourage you to head out and try shooting window reflection shots, because it's another street photography tool in your ever-growing arsenal. But if you want to learn how to use black and white to make your street photography stand out, then check out this video here. Until we meet again, go forth and create.